Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Creators Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So now that the full set has dropped, it's time to evaluate things, crunch the numbers, and say, hey, you know what? What are the cards you need to be looking out for Modern Horizons 3? What can make a massive impact in Commander? Let's jump into it. So first up, when it comes to impact, it's hard to dispute that the flares are going to have an impact. These are crazy good cards. When it comes to magic and free, yeah, spells that are free tend to make a big impact in certain formats. A Flare of Cultivation is an example. Sorcery for 3 mana in green, but you're never going to pay that sometimes. I do say sometimes. You may sacrifice a non-token green creature and pay the spell's mana cost. Search life for 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, put 1 on the battlefield, tap the other in your hand, then shuffle. This equals a slightly harder to cast, if you're actually hard casting it, Cultivate or Kadama's Reach. It's the exact same thing. But it also has the added benefit of, oh, I just have this little green creature over here that I don't really care about too much. Sacrifice you, play this for free. Yay, great ramp, great. I mean, technically card advantage, I guess, getting extra land in your hand, but also just like hitting your next land drops is nice too. Yeah, I mean, what else to say other than it's not for, I mean, it's not for every deck, but I mean, it kind of technically, really, if you have Cultivate, it's basically the exact same thing. Maybe it's slightly harder to cast, but like, yeah, like it's very good, obviously. I mean, these aren't like the final prices right now that I'm showing on this episode because the set hasn't come out yet, but this is going to give you like a little indication of like around maybe what these prices are going to be and how in demand these cards might be. It's a very good card. Again, is every deck going to be able to consistently sacrifice creatures to do so? No, but certain decks even want to, like Aristocrat, so there you go. Moving on, Flare Denial, exact same thing when it comes to like the sacrificing, but it is blue. So I'm not just going to rehash the entire thing every time, but this one says, very simply, counter target spell. I don't know about you, but I'm not really a fan of counter spells that are free. I mean, it's not like I don't have any problem against playing against them. It's just like, I don't think we need these kinds of cards personally, but that's just my own opinion. Now, are you going to have blue creatures to sacrifice, I guess is the question. It just always depends on the scenario, too. Like, if you're in a panic mode scenario, like late game, that player's about to win right now. They're casting something that's going to have them win. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I could sacrifice my commander, even though I don't really want to sacrifice my commander. Yeah, you'll still do that, just to save the game right there. So, a very good card. Probably going to be the most expensive out of the flares, I would assume. $32. Whenever it comes to like a free counter spell, yeah, that's going to be expensive. So there you go. Probably less application when it comes to like Aristocrat style strategies, which is like the example that I am going to bring up when it comes to, yeah, decks that actually want to sacrifice things. So keep that in mind. Red does have Aristocrat style strategies typically. Flare Duplication, exact same thing, but a red creature, non-token. Again, it is important that they put non-token or this would be much more effective. And it's already incredibly effective. Copy target and source spell, 2 targets for the copy. That's very good. In a mono red deck, I will just teach you this little trick. It is basically a counter spell as well. So like, I mean, obviously it's very nice. Like if someone like targets one of your things with like a spell and you're like, haha, I will copy it and then target your thing. Haha. Or like I cast a big spell and I copy that. Or you cast a big spell and I copy that. But also just, it's kind of like a redirect in a way where, hey, you countered my spell you're trying to. Okay, I cast this for free. I copy your counter spell and I counter your counter spell. Yay. So in mono red's kind of like that. Flare Fortitude, gross. $13 right now. Instant for, I guess, 1 more mana is what I should say for this one. Again, sacrifice non-token white creature. Until end of turn, your life total can't change and permanent you control have hexproof and indestructible. This is panic button, like just like, oh, save my entire thing. This one's like very apt to be cast for sacrificing a creature because if someone's casting, say, a board wipe, they're taking out all your creatures anyways. So it's well worth it to sacrifice one of those creatures to save the rest. And also potentially yourself. Again, this can be a game-saving decision because your life total can't change. So like for 4 mana anyways, this is probably just worth it as is. Versus some of the other ones really aren't. Like the like counter spells like a cancel basically, and that's pretty terrible. This one though, again, them being free makes a difference obviously. But yeah, this one can be absolutely huge. A very like game-saving proposition for you. Also, you could just like sacrifice one of your creatures and then Wrath of God, destroy the board yourself. And then you're like, oh, my creature survived. Ha! Swing at you all. Goodbye. Flare Mouse, the final one. This one, again, is in more risk style colors. I guess the white one is too. Sacrifice a black creature, non-token. Each opponent sacrifice a creature planeswalker with the greatest mana value among creatures planeswalkers they control. That's very nice. It is removal. Typically, the highest mana value is what you would usually want to go for and force him to sacrifice. It gets around indestructible, which is nice. Regeneration as well. But yeah, it not being targeted, it's still very nice for 4 mana or, again, free. And again, black is probably the one color out of all these that's most apt to sacrifice creatures. Like, you know, you have creature fodder, like Resummoning Skeleton. You actually want to sacrifice those. So there you go. So yeah, the flares, I think, are going to make a massive impact in Commander. Next up, MDFCs. Yeah, the MDFCs that we previously got a long time ago, it seems like a long time ago at this point, have already made massive impacts in Commander. I mean, how many decks use Balaged Recovery or whatever that one is? A lot. Because it's just like a free card for your deck. Because it is taking up a land slot. Yeah, it's a slightly slower land, but some of these even aren't. That being said, we got a brand new kind of MDFC with the lands that are multicolored. So here we go. Revitalizing Repass, an instant for a Golgari. Put a counter on target creature, gains indestructible out of turn. Yeah, this is a just shoo-in for an amazing card in any deck that has Golgari that really wants to protect their commander and is okay with a land that, yes, does come into play tapped on the back. Yeah, sure. But if you need it as a land, great. It fixes your mana. But also, if you don't, hey, cool. It is a 1 mana, save my commander, get out of jail free card. That just took up a land slot in your deck. And I do say your commander can be any other creature too, but still typically commander. Also, +1 counter synergies with that as well. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker because yeah, there's a lot of them. You could probably argue for any of these MDFCs to be thrown in a deck because, again, they're not really taking up a spot in that deck. They're taking up a land spot in that deck. I will urge you, don't take all of your basics. Basics are amazing. I love basics. Yeah, keep your basics too. But, like, yeah, you can make room for some, especially MDFCs. Legion Leadership. This one says, until I'm turned, double target creature's power and gains first strike. A surprise instant speed, double creature's power can be game ending. Again, if your commander is like a Voltron commander can definitely do that, but even just like a decently high-powered commander, if you get double strike on that commander, and then also this, it's just like, oh, one-shot KO. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy. It also can be utilized on an opponent's creature, too, so keep that in mind. If they're attacking someone else, cool. Or just, again, like a great way to, yeah, save a creature in combat, too. Double its power, first strike, it can block better. Cool. Stump. This is the Gruul one. Target creature control deals damage to its power. Target creature planeswalker you don't control. It's like a better fight in a way because fight is typically, again, it gets damage itself. I guess enrage would be the only thing that you'd care about more. Like if I want my creature to get hit, sure. This one just like, no, yeah, I just take out that creature. This is a free removal spell in your deck for Gruul. Congratulations. That's really good. Bogart Trawler, kind of like a, why is it escaping me, Bajuka Bog? There we go. But on a creature, but still an MDFC, so it is basically a land too again. 3-1, enters battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Yeah, that's quite nice, being able to get rid of a graveyard. Just say, hey, that's gone. Some players might not realize just kind of just how important that can be, how impactful that can be, and how just game-changing, game-breaking that can be against certain decks that literally just, all they want to do is get things in their graveyard and do like reanimation-style decks, self-mill decks. And if you just disrupt them once even, that can throw off their entire game plan in a big way. And again, it doesn't take up a spot in your deck. And also, this one with the, I was going to say, not the non-multicolored ones, are the ones that can actually enter the battlefield untapped if you pay 3 life. So basically, lightning bolt yourself. They can enter untapped. So again, it's take up a land spot that doesn't slow you down technically. So yeah, really, really good. The green one, +2/+2 to a creature. It fights one creature you don't control. Again, I talked about earlier how like the other one's like technically better in some ways, but this is better in many ways. This one's worse because it is fighting. You could lose that creature. Most likely you won't, though. You get the little pump too as well, and enrage triggers work too. And again, this one can enter the battlefield untapped. Sink into Stupor. Gross. Bounce target spell or null and turn it back to its owner's hand. And opponent controls, specifically. Yeah, like a delayed counterspell in a way. Or a, yeah, I mean, just bounce spell for 1 extra mana than what it usually would be. So, is it that efficient? No, but again, it's on a land that can enter the battlefield untapped MDFC. Great. Strength of the Harvest. This one, do you have an Enchantress deck? Or a go-wide creature-based strategy? Hey, would you like to make your creature massive? Congratulations. Or I guess Voltron too, if it's like auras. But yeah, you want to make that creature massive? Congratulations, it's on an MDFC. Fell the Profane. Oh, okay. Hey, just free removal. Destroy any creature, any planeswalker for 4 mana. Just 1 more mana than a murder, essentially. At instant speed. And again, on a land that can enter the battlefield untapped. Waterlog Teachings. Search live for an instant or a card with flash. Or a card with flash, I should say. Put in your hand and shuffle. It's a tutor. I mean, is it an efficient tutor when it comes to the mana cost out of it? No. But, hey, a free tutor on a land that can tap for 1 of 2 colors? Yeah, that's really, really, really good. So this can work in a lot of strategies out there. Again, it's a great, like, panic, like, oh, I need a board wipe. I guess there aren't too many board wipes out there, like, instant speed, but there are some, I guess, but removal more so. Or again, a combo piece, or I need some card draw, whatever it is. Yeah, a tutor on MDC. Gross. Witch Enchanter, especially gross. Enters battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. I can see this one being blinked a million times against me in all the blink decks out there because, yeah, again, it's a land that can enter the battlefield untapped, so there's no downside to it except for that lightning bolt for the damage, and that's less than a 10th of your life total in Commander. And again, it's a great ETB. Is it overcosted for what it does? Sure, but again, it's on an MDFC, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't take up a spot in your deck. Same thing with Pinnacle Monk. This one, again, ETBs, returns instant or sorcery from grave to your hand. Also, it does have prowess, so it can be a threat in and of itself. At 5 mana, typically you see like ETB, bring back an instant or sorcery. At 4 with like Archaeomancer. Eternal Witness, obviously a little bit better than that with any card, but still, yeah, this again doesn't take up a spot in your deck and enter battlefield untap. Suppression Ray, even this one, like that might not be all that good for the most part, is still very good just because, again, it doesn't take up a spot in your deck. And there might be a time when you're like, okay, tap all creatures target player controls. That can be very, very useful. Just being like, okay, your creatures are tapped, I can swing through on you. Your creatures basically can't block. And also you can, again, like if it's the player to your right and you have the other 2 players right here and that player's a threat over there, you're like, okay, I'm going to tap down their creatures. I'm going to swing in. You both swing in. We'll take them out. I did this with one of my lands. Yes. It does say you may pay X energy and then choose up to X type creatures this way, but I still counter to them. If you're an energy deck, it's better, obviously. But if it's not, you can still utilize it. Disciple of Freyles. Enters the battlefield. You may sacrifice another creature. If you do, gain X life and draw X cards, X that creature's power. Yeah, this is a giant ETB draw spell in green. Sure, it costs 6, but again, you're in green. And if you just need it as a land, again, it can enter the battlefield untapped. But yeah, draw a ton of cards with this. And sure, gain life as well. So life gain synergies, consider that too. Blood-Soaked Insight, the last one I'm going to highlight here. Sorcery for 7 mana, but you'll never pay that. It can just cost as low as just 2 mana. One less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Again, you're in Commander. You got 3 opponents. If you just like drain them all twice or whatever, yeah, it's nearly free. Not nearly free. Target opponent exiles the top 3 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. If a card, if you cast spell sway mana of any type, you can cast it. Yeah, potential 3-card advantage off the top of an opponent's library. Absolutely love it. Again, it does say play, so you can play lands off that, so consider that too. Okay, so those 2 categories, I just decided had to be a little bit separate with the flares and MVCs because, yeah, those very much group together. The rest of these, I decided to group in a very weird way. Here we go, by mana value. So first up, lands! There you go. Archway of Innovation, enters battlefield, tap unless you control an island, taps for a blue, pay a blue, and tap the next spell you cast this turn as Improvise. Yeah, it's really good. I don't know if it's $66 good right now. That price might come down, but that's really good. Here's the thing with these. Are you in a blue deck that cares about artifacts? Slam dunk. Are you just in any deck that cares about artifacts? Slam dunk. I mean, not as much as that, but still. Obviously with these, the more likely to save an island and play, the better these get. Because, hey, you can play untapped. Obviously, outside of mono blue, there's other decks as well that have a lot of islands as well. There's other, like, you know, non-basics that have island types too. That being said, giving a spell Improvise for a single mana, it's technically 2 mana because you are paying a blue to tap this, and instead of tapping this for a blue, you're getting no mana out of it. So you're using this land and another land as well. So you're going down 2 mana, but again, if you have like 10 artifacts in play, you're like, okay, cool, tap those artifacts, and then I improvise that spell. Yeah, that's really, really, really good. So there's a reason why it's probably going to be pretty expensive. Next up, Spymaster's Vault. Just another one to highlight here. The black one. Enters battlefield, tap, let's control a swamp. Tap for a black, pay a black, tap. Target creature control connives X for X the number of creatures that died this turn. This is pretty disgusting. This is one of the ones where you think they'd say, like, activate only sorcery speed. They didn't. Draw X cards and then discard X cards. Put a counter on that creature for each non-land card. Discard this way. again, it can be on anyone's turn. Anyone's turn. If someone casts a board wipe and you've got a creature that survives that, again, an indestructible creature, or if it's like a damage-based board wipe, you just like, oh. Or I mean, like, you might be the player who does that too. Maybe you got like a one-sided board that you cast. Regardless. Like, oh, 20 creatures just died? Okay. I'll have my creature connive 20 times. I'll draw 20 cards, discard 20 cards, and get a certain number of counters on the creature. Woo! Yeah, there's some crazy things you can do with this. And yeah, it has potential into battlefield untapped. So, and even if not, even if you aren't like wiping the board or having the board wiped, in aristocrat style strategy, do you know how many creatures you sacrifice in a turn? Like an absurd amount. So yeah, you can just be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my creature's massive. Now I drew a bunch of cards. I discard a bunch of cards. Cool. I do all these things. Very nice. Next up, another land I want to highlight that kind of represents all the lands of this. These, I don't know what you call them, like cycle fetch lands, I guess? Twisted Landscape. Land, tap for a colorless. This is the Jund 1. Tap, sacrifice it. Search life for a basic swamp, mountain, or forest card. Upon the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Or you can cycle it away for one of each of those mana colors. That's very good. So we are getting more and more and more of these like fetch type lands lately where, I mean, like Escape Tunnel is strictly better than Evolving Wilds. And Evolving Wilds has been at the top of like the budget-friendly fetch land for a long, long time. And now we're starting to get more and more of these that like do somewhat similar things. This one, obviously, it's more limited, but also not. I mean, in a 3-color deck, it is strictly better because it gets you those same things, but also it can be cycled away and also can be tapped for mana right away too. So if you don't need any of those colors right away, you're just like, oh, okay, cool. I will tap this for a colorless. And when I need to fix my mana later, I can fix my mana later. Also, obviously, for landfall synergies, absolutely incredible. For discard synergies, for cycling synergies, absolutely incredible. So yeah, are these cards for every deck out there? No, because obviously they're limited. They can't be in any deck that's less than 3 colors. But obviously, once you get higher and higher in the colors, I mean, these are good. These are slam dunks, obviously, in their own color pairing. So there you go. So next up, moving on from 0 mana to 1 mana, let's go with Guide of Souls. It's a 1/2 human cleric for a single white mana. When another creature in his battlefield under control, you gain 1 life and get energy counter. Whenever you attack, you may pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 counters and a flying counter on target attacking creature comes in angelish to other types. So this one's got a couple of applications. I mean, first up, it's not a Soul Sister, right? But it's like adjacent to a Soul Sister, because the Soul Sisters count when any creature comes into play, not just your own. So obviously in Commander, that's a lot more creatures that you're taking advantage of. Though again, if you've got a deck built around Soul Sisters, you are, well, caring about creatures just a little bit more than your opponent. So you're going to have a lot coming into play. So life gain synergies care about this. Go wide strategies care about this with like token generation. And of course, energy cares about this too. Even if you don't care about energy though, it doesn't matter. All right, that next part is quite good, that when you attack, you can pay 3, which obviously is quite easy to get to. It's just 3 creatures coming into play. And again, if a go wide strategy, you're going to have a lot of creatures coming into play. You can then say, oh, all right, I'll get 3 or 2 counters on that creature that's attacking. They get flying as well. I mean, with that counter, so it's perpetual flying. And also, sure, they're an angel. Maybe there's some synergies there too, but most likely it's just a great way to get something through, maybe even your commander, and pump it as well. And of course, that works really well with Proliferate too, with those counters and with the energy counters too. So yeah, a good amount of applications for this. It's only 1 mana. Indebted Spirit. Yet another great 1 mana card. This one, there's no price on this one yet. I mean, I think this might be the only one that doesn't have a price on it yet. But regardless, we'll see where this ends up. Hope it's budget friendly. But like, it's like a Doom Traveler in a way, a 1/1 with Afterlife 1. So if it dies, you get a 1/1. But also it has Bestow. So you bestow it on a creature, and then that creature gets +1 and Afterlife 1. So this is like an aristocrat style dream, where you're like, oh, okay, cool. I get like 3 creatures out of this like 1 mana creature. I mean, you need to pay 3 to actually get that, right? But it is flexible in that way. It's either 2 creatures for 1 mana, or essentially 3 creatures for 3 mana. Because you're bestowing it, attaching it, that creature dies, and then you get that. So yeah, aristocrat style decks obviously love this. Low the ground decks will love this as well. Yeah, it's a really good card. Next up, Ocelot Pride. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a 1/1 cat with first strike and lifelink for a single white mana. Also Ascend. You're in Commander. You're gonna get the City's Blessing quite easily, especially with this kind of a card. Beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, create a 1/1 cat creature token. Then if you have the City's Blessing, for each token you control that enters the battlefield this turn, create a token's copy of it. Okay, this is a token generating deck's dream. This is a 1 mana card that says, hey, did you gain life? Oh, by the way, this says lifelink. If you do, Cool. Double up all those tokens that you just made. Doesn't say creature token either. Any token. So yes, treasures too. There's a lot of kind of decks that could utilize something like this. Obviously, finally, in the 1-mana card, Strict Serenade, an instant for a single blue mana, counter target artifact creature, planeswalker spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 bluebird creature with flying. Kind of went back and forth on this one, but like obviously the comparable card to this is Swan Song, and I love that they have the same alliteration, like Strict Serenade, Swan Song, lovely. Okay. The only difference is that Swan Song, and correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, is instants, sorceries, or enchantments. That is what they counter. This one's artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers. Typically, planeswalkers are not all that much played in Commander. Typically. Now, obviously, you might have an opponent that has like a planeswalker deck or a planeswalker's commander, but typically the number of commanders that are played, or the number of cards that are played that are planeswalkers in a game is much less than artifacts or creatures. Those are both relevant things to counter. That being said, when it comes to wanting to counter things, you typically want to counter non-creature spells in Commander, which is why Essence Scatter, is that the card? Essence Scatter, I think, counters creatures, and then Negate counters non-creature spells. Negate sees so much more play than Essence Scatter. So, if we're comparing the two, I would rather have Swan Song, which can counter 3 non-creature spells, versus this one, which counters technically 2, but one of them is Planeswalkers, which we typically don't see. It's still good. I mean, again, like a 1 mana, I'll counter your commander spell, give you a bird, sure, and also counter artifacts too. It's still good. It's still going to see play. It's just not quite the Swan Song, but still definitely going to see play, in my opinion. Moving on to 2 mana, we have quite a few, starting things off with a Curse Marauder, a 2/1 zombie warrior, 2 relevant creature types, especially zombie, for 2 mana, enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature. This is an improved, I was going to say Plague Crafter, but it's slightly different than that, but like Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, but yes, Plague Crafter essentially, but at just 2 mana, so it's obviously improvement there. It's got a relevant creature type with zombie, and yes, warrior as well, but also it forces sacrifice of non-token creatures, meaning that your opponents actually have to sacrifice something worth something. So if they're like, I've got my 1/1 servo, too bad, doesn't matter, sacrifice your commander, it's really the thing. So yes, this can actually deal a lot of pain to your opponents. It's a great repeatable edict effect. Yeah, and of course you're going to sacrifice it itself. So there you go. Yeah, getting rid of non-token creatures is an improvement. Being at 2 mana is an improvement. It doesn't force discard like Playcrafter, but still, it is relevant. Again, being a zombie and a warrior, lots of great things there. Charitable Levy, an enchantment for 2 mana in white. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Where a player casts a non-creature spell, put a collection counter on it. Then if there are 3 or more collection counters on it, sacrifice it. If you do, draw a card and life for a plains card, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This is really good. So here's the thing. If you're in mono white, you're like, oh my gosh, more ramp. Whoa. Now this is like rampant growth that replaces itself and taxes your opponents 3 times. I mean, it might tax you too, but you're fine with that. Here's the thing with this one. This is like one of those where like, sure, it can like really bite you if this gets destroyed, but it's probably not going to get destroyed. Like, it's not worth someone targeting this to take it out to stop you from drawing a card and ramping one. So yeah, it's just going to annoy your opponents by making them pay 1 more for their non-creature spells. You're probably going to get to, have this trigger within a turn or 2. And obviously, you might slow yourself down as well. That's fine. Replacing itself and ramping. And again, a plains card, not basic, so you can go get a non-basic that has a plains type. That's really, really good. So yeah, quite good. Moving on. My goodness, I can't believe they made this. Collective Resistance, an instant for 1 and a green escalate, so you can pay a green more for each mode chosen on the first. Choose 1 or more, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, and target creature gains hexproof and indestructible out of turn. Oh gosh. Okay, so yes, basically when you have like these 2 mana, let's get rid of something cards. You're like Return to Nature type cards. I think that's the name of that one, right? You're like, okay, I get to either destroy an artifact or destroy an enchantment or something completely different that is usually a side case that I will not pick over these other 2. This one is different. This one is, hey, first of all, you can get all of them that you want, but it's paying extra mana to do so, which is already very efficient and effective. Paying 3 mana to destroy an artifact and enchantment, very, very efficient. Paying 2 mana to do either of those, yeah, I mean, it's all right. That's kind of what you're expecting to do. But yeah, paying 4 mana to get all of them, yes. Being able to protect something or destroy something on the same card and both at the same time, very, 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 very good. So this is protection for your commander that is also a removal spell, filling 2 needs for your deck. Yes, and I do say, like, on these, I do say, like, commander. It applies to any of your creatures, but typically it's like, I want to protect my commander with this kind of a card. So yes, this is a really, really good card. Very flexible. I can see seeing a ton of play. Cranial Ram. Do you have Cranial Plating in your deck? You're going to want Cranial Ram. Oh, okay. As long as you're an artifact deck. Living Weapon comes to play with a germ that it's attached to it. Creatures plus X plus 1 Rex, the number of artifacts you control. We're getting more and more artifacts in play these days, again, with like treasures and other kinds of artifact tokens being very abundant. So yeah, this hits really, really hard. Do you need something to hit hard? Congratulations. This. Moving on, Emperor of Bones. This one is interesting, and I do want to point this out because this is a card that has a lot of potential depending on the deck. 2/2 Skeleton Noble for 2 mana. At the beginning of combat, your turn, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Pay 1 a black, adapt 2. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on Emperor Bones, put a creature card exile with on the battlefield under control. They finality counter on it. Gains haste, sacrifice be a next end step. It's got a good amount of potential because this is first up Graveyard Hate, which is nice to have. It can also be a threat by stealing your opponent's creatures essentially and utilizing them against them. Yes, temporarily, but still. Not very expensively. I mean, expensively. It's not very expensive to do so. 2 mana, and then also 2 to adapt it. But also, if you are in either a deck that has Proliferate or ++1 counter synergies, my goodness, the potential of this. Because you keep getting more cards exiled with this, you can keep proliferating, or you can keep, again, getting more counters on this in other ways, cheaper ways, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool. I steal that, I steal that, I steal that. A lot of potential there. Moving on, Emrakul's Messenger. Emrakul, you have a message. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll pick up the phone. 2/1, Eldrazi Fairy Rogue with Devoid and flying for 2 mana in blue. Whenever you draw your second card each turn. Create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice creature, add colorless. You draw a lot of cards, again, on your turn, on your opponent's turns as well. This can give you a lot of not just creature tokens, but basically ramp. It is temporary ramp, giving you Eldrazi's that you can sacrifice. Yeah, also, 3 relevant creature types, Eldrazi, Fairy, and Rogue. It's also evasive, low to the ground, 2 mana. If you're drawing a bunch of cards, this can be a house for you. Next up, Eviscerator's Insight. 2 mana instant, sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw 2 cards, flash it back for 5 mana. Typically, like a Village Rite style card is like 1 mana, sacrifice a creature, draw 2. This is, hey, 1 more mana, sacrifice an artifact or creature, and you can flash it back again. So decks that are utilizing any of those Village Rite style cards will absolutely love this. Being able to just, yeah, okay, when I need to later, I can cast that again, sacrifice something, which probably gives me value in the deck that I'm running this in, and then also drawing 2 cards off of it. Lovely. Fangs of Colonia. This can be a game-ending card. Sorcerer, just 2 mana. Put a counter target creature control, then double the number of counters on the creature that had a counter on it. Put it this way. Double the number of plus 1 counters on each creature that had a counter put on it this way. Overload it for 6. So, I mean, just at a base level, like let's say you've got a commander that runs on counters. Cool, you can just like get an extra counter, then double up those counters and potentially be game ending right there. But of course, if you've got like a +1 counter build and you're going wide with the counters, sure, just overload it. And all of a sudden you've got an absurd number of counters on everything. So this is flexible. It's good. Those kinds of synergies. Moving on, Marionette Apprentice. Cool. 1/2 Human Artificer for 2 mana. Fabricate 1. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is upgraded from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. Gross. Okay, so it's not quite Marionette Master, but it is just 2 mana, number 1. Number 2, it also counts creatures. But yeah, it's not based on its own power that's draining, but it drains each of your opponents. So that's really, really good. Kind of like a Zulport Cutthroat, but again, for creatures or artifacts, and that does not specify non-token. So yeah, sacrifice your treasures, drain your opponents too. So, and I do say drain. Some people say like draining only means like losing life and you gain life. You don't gain life. That's okay though. The most important thing is you are draining your opponents. You are getting their life down. This can happen really, really quickly. This can be very good. Again, treasure decks, aristocrat style decks, any kind of decks that like to go wide and get a lot of creatures in the graveyard. Have fun. Metastatic Evangel, a 3/1 Phyrexian Human Cleric. So again, at least 2, nothing against clerics, at least 2 relevant creature types. Clerics are relevant, I guess, for cleric style decks, but there's only so many of those out there. For 2 mana in white, whenever another non-token creature is about to control, proliferate. Do you have a proliferate deck? Cool. Use this. Do you have a go wide strategy that gets a bunch of counters out there? Cool. Use this. And I mean go wide, I guess, with creatures, so keep that in mind. So we have the opposite of that. Propagator Drone. 2/2 Eldrazi Drone for 2 mana in green devoid. Creature tokens you control have evolve. Hey, do you have lots of creature tokens that you're making? Yeah. Do they have like various power levels maybe? Or maybe you're planning on getting like anthems in play? Yeah. Do you just have like some bigger creatures in play too that you're going to be getting? Yeah, including my commander. Okay, good. Use this. My goodness, the amount of extra counters is this going to get on like all your creatures is absurd. Absolutely absurd. You can also like make Eldrazi spawn too for 4 mana as well. So it's kind of like a way to bank mana in a way, like very inefficiently. Or obviously get a creature out there that's a 0/1 that can very easily evolve and become much more massive, much more quickly. White of the Reliquary, the last one of the 2 mana cards. 2/2 Zombie Knight with Vigilance for 2 mana in Golgari. +1 for each creature card in your graveyard. Tap, sacrifice a creature. Search life for a land card. Play the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This is ridiculous. I'm sure there's some combos that you can utilize with this, but hey, okay. Couple different strategies that might want to use this. Aristocrat style. Sacrificing things, yeah, for value. It's not repeatable unless you can untap it, but still, it is technically repeatable in a landfall synergy. If you've got, what's the one? Rashita Coral Helm? There you go. You just tap this, sacrifice a creature. Cool, I get a land. All right, untap, sacrifice a creature. I guess you need more creatures. But if you got that, plus, say, Zendikar's Royal, anything to make creature token, you go infinite until you run out of lands in your deck. That being said, again, yeah, you can go get any land out of your deck, not just a basic, so it does work in synergies that like to utilize, again, like land combinations, like Dark Depth style decks do. Also, it cares about creature cards in your graveyard. This can be a massive creature for just 2 mana, so if you've got a self-mill strategy or a deck that likes to get a lot of creatures in the graveyard, great for there too. Lots of strategies can utilize it. It's very, 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 very good. Very, very powerful. And again, 2 relevant creature types too, so keep that in mind. And it's got Vigilance. I kind of forget that too. It's got Vigilance. There you go. Moving on at 3 mana, yet another Weapon Craft Enthusiast style card. I just tend to call that for like any creature that costs 3 and gives you 3 creatures. There you go. Eldrazi Repurposer in a different way though. 3/3 Eldrazi Drone for 3 mana in green. When you cast this spell and when it dies, I almost said it was battlefield. Create a 0/1 cost Eldrazi spawn that you can sacrifice for mana. That is relevant that it is cast the spell, not when it enters the battlefield, because you can't use and abuse that as easily, or like at all really. You have to keep bouncing back to your hand, which is not nearly as effective as just blinking it, or like feign deathing it. But basically, yeah, 3 creatures for 3 mana. Sure, you only get one of them on its death, but that can be a better thing for certain decks off of a death trigger potentially. And also those creatures that you are getting kind of like ramp you as well. Again, temporary ramp being those spawns that you can sacrifice for mana. Next up, Golden Tail Trainee, or Trainer, I should say, not the trainee. The trainee's behind it, like, what's going on over there? A 1/3 Fox Samurai for 3 mana in Selesnya, or an equipment spells you cast costs 1 to cast for X is its power. I'm just going to stop right there real quick. Do you have an Aura equipment deck? Does it have these colors? You probably want this. Unless every single one of your auras cost like a single pip, and this won't reduce anything. Whenever it attacks, other modified creatures you control get +X/+X until the turn X is its power. That can also just be a massive pump effect. Again, typically auras and equipment, not mainly I'm going to say, but like a lot of them pump, give an extra power. So yeah, by increasing this power, you reduce the cost of your spells essentially to take out all the generic costs, especially for equipment that can be amazing. All your equipment are free essentially, except for the ones that do have pips. I know some have pips. But yeah, basically you're just spending for pips. Then also, you just pump your entire team. So this is incredible for any decks that revolve around auras or equipment, essentially. Kozilek's Unsealing. Do you have big creatures? Yeah. You want this. Enchantment for 3 mana with the Void. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 4, 5, or 6, you get 2 Eldrazi spawns, which you can sacrifice for mana, so you get 2 mana back, essentially, and you also can go wide. Top of that, but if you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, you draw 3 cards. What? Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, does your commander cost a good amount? Are you going to recast a couple times maybe? Cool. Good for that. Yeah, if you got big creatures, definitely consider this. Next up, do you like impact tremors? Use this. Molten Gatekeeper, a 2/3 artifact creature golem for 3 mana. Whenever the creature enters battlefield under control, it deals 1 damage each opponent. Unearth. Yes, use this. The fact that it can unearth is nice, and that you can just like bring it back for just 1 mana for a big turn again, like with a Krenko deck potentially. Be like, okay, cool. Well, you dealt with this earlier, but now I've got 10 goblins in play right now, and I can finish my opponents if I just pay a single red mana and tap my commander to make 10 more goblins. Goodbye. Next up, Necro Dominance. Necropotence this is not, but it is very, very good still. Legendary enchantment for black. Skip your draw step. Never a good thing to see, but hey, you can make up for that. Beginning of your end step, you may pay any amount of life. If you do draw that many cards, your maximum hand size is 5. If a card or token put in your graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. There's some downsides to this card. Absolutely there are, but the big thing is, hey, you can pay any amount of life you want and then draw that many cards. Your hand size is reduced to 5, but Who cares? Yeah, dig down into your deck, get the cards that you need, get the exact cards that you need, essentially. Also, obviously, like any kind of like, hey, whenever you draw a card, synergies happen. Shieldred, anyone? Phyrexian, not Phyrexian. Psychosis Crawler, just take out all your opponents. There's a lot of great synergies with this. Moving on. Skittering Precursor, a 3/3 Eldrazi drone for 3 minutes. I always want to say prosecutor as is. Skittering Prosecutor. You're going to jail. I don't know. What do prosecutors say? I object. There we go. With Menace, whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice creature, add a colorless mana. Do you have a deck that sacrifices non-token permanents? Like an aristocrat style deck that sacrifices non-token creatures? Yes, this is amazing. Gives you a bunch of spawn. If you don't have those kinds of decks, maybe not. We got Trickster's Elk. A 3/3 Elk for 3 mana that has Bestow for 1 and a green. Enchanted creatures loses all abilities, and a green elk is a green elk with base part of his 3/3. Are you an Enchantress style deck? I mean, this is yet another one of those like Lignify type cards, but also just a 3/3 as well. So like you get something when that's gone. So again, if that creature gets taken out, which that opponent wants to get that creature taken out, being a 3/3 that does nothing. Again, typically this is like a 2 mana. Your commander does nothing until you get rid of this kind of card or get rid of your commander. And then you get this back as a 3/3, which is nice. So there you go. Yeah, enchantment decks, mostly. Warden Soul Trader. A 3/3 zombie goblin wizard for 3 mana in black. Pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, create a treasure token. Okay. Do you like Phyrexian Altar? Yeah, this is that. This is basically that. But it's also, I mean, it's worse in that it's not an artifact. I mean, it's a creature, not an artifact. It's worse than that, so it's technically easier to get rid of, right? Because of, you know, like Wraths or like Swords of Plowshares. But, I mean, it gives you treasures versus 1 mana of any color, which that is better because you can use, unless an opponent has like artifacts into the battlefield tap. But if they don't have that, which typically they don't, you can like store up that mana then. So this is, I guess there's a downside to it where you pay 1 life, but that's not a big deal in Commander. Come on, you start with 40 life, all right? It's not really a downside at all. So, hey, free sacrifice outlet for your creatures. Make a ton of mana that you can store up and use whenever you want. Also, this has 3 relevant creature types with zombie, goblin, zombie, goblin, and wizard. I guess gobbly is what a zombie goblin is. Yeah. It's gonna see a ton of play. Aristocrat style, treasure decks, any combos as well. Token doubling decks, like any decks that can utilize. There's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, do you have Phyrexian Altar? Cool. Good. Okay. There's a reason why this is $16 right now. Next up, finally, at 4+ mana, we've got Abstruse Appropriation. That's a hard word to say for me, at least. Instant for 4 mana, Orzhov Devoid. Exile target non-land permanent. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may spend colorless mana, Azor, or mana of any color to cast it. Yeah. Okay, so Utter End was definitely a thing. Still sees play. This is Utter End, but you can play the card. Does Utter End let you exile lands? Typically, lands don't matter. Typically. Yes, sometimes they do. Sometimes you're like, my goodness, I wish I had land removal for that Gaia's Cradle. Darn. But for the most part, you don't care about taking out lands. Okay, typically. So, 4 mana to remove anything on the board. That's 1 more mana than you typically want it to if, like, you have Anguished Unmaking or whatever. Then you lose 3 life, whatever it is. This is just removal plus upside. Like, okay, let me get rid of one of your best things, and then I can steal it. Yeah. I mean, just picture this, okay? I pay 4 mana before the end of your turn. I get rid of your Smothering Tithe. And then next turn, I play your Smothering Tithe. And now I have the best card on the board that I stole from you. Or again, you can just like store it and like keep it off to the side for whenever you need it. So yeah, it's a very, very, very good card. Next up. This is one that I don't know if I mean, it says $3 right now, but again, these are like early prices, so they will adjust. And this one was spoiled more recently. This one I think some people might sleep on, but maybe they're not. A 4/4 that costs 5 mana. You can adapt to for 2 and a black. Whenever one or more counters are put on it, you may draw a card. You might draw 2 cards if you do lose 2 life. I do skip when I say +1 counters because it's harder to say than just counters. So if I just say counters, typically it is +1. So here's the thing. I mean, that first activation, yeah, is that all that good? Like 8 mana in total to draw 2, lose 2? No, not at all. But if you're in any kind of a proliferate strategy or +1 strategy, my goodness, every single time you get a counter on this, you draw 2, lose 2. Again, I will lose 1 life for 1 card any day of the week in Commander. You dig down your deck in no time with something like this. It does have a relevant creature type as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting card. Moving on, Spawn Gang Commander. Have you heard of Siege Gang Commander? Yes. Are you a fan of that one? Yes. Do you have a blink deck? Doesn't matter for this one, unfortunately, but I mean, maybe fortunately. This one is better but worse than Siege Gang. 2/2 Eldrazi Goblin with Devoid for 5 mana in red. Whenever you cast a spell, create 3/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice creature, add a colorless. Pay 1 a colorless, sacrifice an Eldrazi, 2 damage to any target. So better but worse in some ways. Again, it is worse that it's not an ETB, but still you are getting 4 bodies for 5 mana, which is very, very good for many strategies out there, like Go Wide Goblins, or I guess Go Wide Eldrazi, or just a Go Wide deck. Yes. But also, hey, you get mana back. It's kind of like a ritual in a way, too, where you get to store up 3 mana as well from this spell to sacrifice when you need them as well. Yeah, it's really, really good. Next up, Territory Color. I almost said Territorial. 7/5 Eldrazi for 5 mana with Reach. Whenever a land is battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may reveal it, put it in your hand. If you don't put it in your hand, you may put it in your graveyard. This is one that I go back and forth on, but I do think that landfall decks should definitely try this out if you got enough creatures in them. Just being able to potentially get extra cards off the top of your library is amazing. Yes, it's at 5 mana, but you're in landfall. You've got so much mana. Like, what are you going to do with it, right? It's also a 7/5. It's a decent threat for that, too. And also, if you don't hit a creature, but you don't like the card that's on top, you can get rid of it. You can put it in your graveyard. So it works with graveyard synergies as well with that. But yeah, you can just be like, it's kind of like Surveil in that way. You're like, oh, I don't like that. Go away. I don't like that. Go away. Oh, that one. It's a creature. Go to my hand. So card advantage plus card selection, landfall synergies, big creature. What's not to love about this? But now this episode is coming to a close. I probably should have mentioned earlier that if you are interested in any of these cards, you can pre-order them right now if you want to, or wait a little bit. But yeah, regardless, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Comment below with your thoughts on these cards, and let me know which cards I missed. What did I mess up on? Which cards am I overvaluing? What am I undervaluing? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.